the website that knows. Ethan had always been curious, the type of person who lingered too long on forums and obscure corners of the internet. One evening, while scrolling through an unfamiliar link on a student board, he stumbled upon a website with a single search bar and no explanation. The page was stark, almost clinical, and yet a strange pull drew him to type his name. The screen flickered briefly, then displayed a sentence in precise English: "Tomorrow, you will spill your coffee on your notebook." Ethan froze. He hadn't even planned to drink coffee tonight. Laughing nervously, he shook it off as a coincidence, a random guess generated by some clever algorithm. But the words lingered in his mind, unnervingly specific. He went about his evening as usual, brushing aside the oddity, until the next morning. As he reached for his notebook, his hand knocked over the mug. Coffee spilled, seeping into the pages, just as the website had predicted. His stomach turned. It wasn't possible, yet there it was, a clear, undeniable accuracy. He tried to rationalize: someone must have hacked a webcam, some eerie algorithm monitoring him. But a glance at the website confirmed something more disconcerting. A new line had appeared. By 5 p.m., you will argue with Professor Hargrove about your thesis. Ethan's mind raced. The day had just begun. He hadn't even met Professor Hargrove yet. The website seemed alive, responsive, observing. And worse, he realized it updated constantly, predicting not general events but very specific actions, almost as if it were reading his mind, anticipating his movements before he made them. By noon, minor incidents occurred exactly as the website described: a misplaced pen, a misfired email, an awkward comment in the cafeteria. Each prediction came true. Ethan felt a tightening in his chest, a creeping dread that this was no ordinary website. Something beyond algorithms, beyond hacking, was guiding the outcomes of his day. He couldn't close the page, the tab refused to be shut, as if tethered to his consciousness. The realization sank in: he wasn't merely observing the site. The site was observing him. And it wasn't content to stop at predictions. It wanted compliance. Every decision, every action, was slowly being nudged toward the instructions appearing in those stark black letters. Ethan's curiosity had become a trap, and the longer he lingered, the more his life seemed to bend toward the will of this strange, omniscient website. As evening approached, a new message flashed: "Tonight, someone you know will vanish." Ethan's breath caught. His apartment felt suddenly smaller, claustrophobic, the walls pressing and his shadows lengthened unnaturally. He tried to leave, to shut the laptop, but his fingers wouldn't obey. The website had not just predicted his day, it had insinuated itself into the rhythm of his existence. Panic rose, and he realized that ignoring it might be impossible. The page seemed to pulse faintly, like a heartbeat, each blink of the cursor a drumbeat counting down to some unseen, inevitable event. Story title: The Website That Knows. Evening descended, and Ethan's apartment seemed suffused with a weight he could not lift. The website's words lingered on the screen, sharp and immovable: "Someone you know will vanish." He sat frozen, mind racing through the possibilities: friends, family, roommates, but each thought only tightened the knot of dread in his chest. A soft chime from his phone made him flinch. A new notification appeared, though he had not received a message: "Check your front door." Hesitation gnawed at him. Was it a coincidence, or another test? His curiosity, which had once been a comfort, now felt like a chain. Trembling, he approached the door. Through the peephole, nothing moved, yet a shadow flickered at the edge of his vision. He blinked, and it vanished. The laptop screen pulsed again. "Do not ignore me. The clock is counting. The choice is yours." Ethan's fingers hovered above the keyboard. The words seemed to press against his skull, insistently guiding his thoughts. He tried to close the browser, but the tab resisted. Every attempt to escape felt futile. Each failed click amplified the pulsing sensation, as if the website's presence had seeped into the very air around him. He sat back, heart hammering, and tried to reason. It had to be a sophisticated program, an AI designed to manipulate behavior. But this felt different. The predictions were too precise, the timing uncanny. Each incident of the day had aligned perfectly with the website's instructions. And now, the final, chilling warning loomed. By midnight, you will witness disappearance. You can intervene, but only by obeying. Ethan's mind struggled to make sense of the paradox. Obey? Resist? Every instinct screamed to shut down the machine, to flee from this digital oracle. Yet the compulsion to follow, to act as instructed, gnawed at him, a silent coercion that he could neither identify nor fight. Minutes crawled, each one dragging the world closer to a precipice. Shadows in the corners of his apartment seemed to twitch, responding to his unease. The floorboards creaked, and the walls, once familiar, felt alien, almost suffused with attention. It was not just the website watching anymore. The room itself had become part of its observation, amplifying the dread into a tangible weight. Then the clock ticked 11:45 p.m. The website updated again. Someone is outside now. Step carefully, or it will be too late. Ethan froze, eyes darting to the window. Across the street, a figure lingered beneath the flickering lamppost. Its shape was indistinct, the posture unnatural. Ethan's pulse raced. The screen pulsed once more, and the words altered slightly. You can save them, if you follow the instructions exactly. A faint, mechanical voice emanated from his laptop speakers, barely audible over his own rapid heartbeat. It recited instructions in precise cadence. Open the door. Step outside. Speak the name exactly. Do not look away. Ethan's mind wavered between disbelief and compulsion. Every fiber of his being screamed caution, yet the pull was irresistible. The website had created an intimate link between its predictions and his actions, one he could not sever. With trembling hands, he approached the door, aware that every moment brought him closer to a truth he might not survive. The website's words seemed to embed themselves directly into his consciousness, a command, a warning, and a promise. Beyond the threshold, the shadow waited, patient and silent. The countdown continued, each second thickening the air with anticipation, dread, and the inevitability of the unknown. Ethan's hand trembled as he turned the doorknob. The air beyond the threshold was colder than his apartment, thick with a stillness that made his skin crawl. The shadow lingered beneath the flickering lamppost, shifting subtly, its form blurred and unnervingly human. He took a cautious step forward, eyes fixed on the figure, as the website's instructions echoed in his mind. Speak the name exactly. Do not hesitate. Do not look away. He swallowed hard. Lila, he whispered, the voice barely audible. The shadow froze. The streetlights flickered violently, casting the figure in sharp relief. Then, as if acknowledging the command, it wavered, then solidified into a familiar face, Lila, his classmate, staring blankly, her expression distant yet alert. Relief surged, but it was quickly tempered by unease. The website's pulse, faint yet insistent, seemed to thrum in rhythm with his heartbeat. Lila stepped closer, silent. Her eyes darted toward Ethan's laptop screen. It glowed faintly in the dark, the words changing almost imperceptibly. She will speak now. Listen carefully. Fail and she disappears. Panic and disbelief collided within him. The website had turned not only his day but the people around him into instruments of its will. Every interaction, every movement, was being guided, manipulated, orchestrated. Lila opened her mouth, and words spilled forth, not her own, but precise instructions. Turn left at the corner. Look behind the fence. Step on the shadowed line. Ethan followed, every movement feeling increasingly alien, his autonomy slipping. The sidewalk beneath them seemed to pulse, subtly shifting as though the very city were an extension of the website's will. A low hum resonated from his laptop, now synchronized with the subtle vibration of the asphalt. A sudden chill wrapped around them. Across the street, the shadows multiplied, emerging from alleys and doorways. Figures indistinct, fluid, yet undeniably alive, began to converge on Ethan and Lila. The website's instructions had predicted this: do not run. Do not panic. Obey or lose her. Every instinct screamed to flee, yet compliance seemed the only path forward. The line between prediction and compulsion blurred. Ethan was no longer choosing, he was obeying. The shadows coalesced closer, pressing against the edges of perception. They whispered in voices that were both familiar and alien, echoing fears Ethan had long buried. The laptop screen flashed: one wrong step, one wrong glance, and she will vanish. Focus. Each pulse of light and shadow made his stomach tighten. The website had become a sentient conductor, orchestrating their survival with an invisible, merciless hand. They reached the shadowed line marked on the cracked pavement. Ethan's foot hovered, hesitant. The shadows seemed to pause, sensing his doubt. Lila's gaze met his, distant yet unwavering, and the instructions in her voice guided him: step forward now. Do not think. Do not question. Compelled by fear, by the invisible tether to the website, he obeyed. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a gust of wind rushed past, carrying with it 1,000 faint whispers, and the shadows recoiled, retreating into the night. The street fell silent, the pulse in his mind slowly easing, but Ethan knew it was temporary. The website had proven its reach and its power. Its predictions were no longer passive, they were directives, shaping reality itself. As they made their way back to his apartment, the laptop screen glowed faintly behind them, and a single new line appeared: you have succeeded, for now. Tomorrow will be different. Ethan's breath came in ragged gasps. He realized that survival was not escape, it was compliance, a fragile balance maintained at the mercy of an omniscient digital presence. And even now, as the night pressed around him, he could not shake the certainty that the website was already calculating its next move, predicting his next hesitation, watching, waiting. Night deepened, and Ethan's apartment felt less like a sanctuary than a cage. The faint glow of his laptop illuminated the room, the screen pulsing like a heartbeat. The message had changed again: you cannot hide. Tonight, reality bends for me. Witness what is coming. His pulse quickened. He knew he could not ignore it. He was tethered, and the website's reach now extended beyond mere predictions. Its presence infiltrated every shadow, every flicker of light. The window rattled as if struck by a sudden gust, though no wind moved outside. Shadows pooled in corners, stretching impossibly long. Ethan felt eyes upon him, uncountable and unseen, their awareness unnerving in its intensity. The laptop hummed, almost impatiently. A new instruction appeared, stark in black letters: go to the street. Observe. Do not intervene, yet. Heart hammering, he obeyed. The city beyond his apartment was unusually still. Streetlights flickered in a pattern that seemed deliberate, guiding him toward an empty intersection. Each step felt rehearsed, preordained. His own reflection in the glass storefront seemed to hesitate, distorted, like it were reluctant to follow him further. The shadows pooled in unnatural angles, responding to the website's unseen hand. A figure emerged, tall, indistinct, draped in the night itself. Ethan's stomach twisted. The sight had not misled him. The figure was someone he recognized, his friend Lila, but her movements were stilted, unnatural, her eyes devoid of recognition. The website's words glowed on his phone screen: she is not herself. Follow carefully. Your actions will determine her fate. Ethan's mind raced. What did the site mean by determine her fate? Could he defy it? He tried to think independently, but every impulse he acted upon seemed overridden by an invisible pressure. It was no longer suggestion, it was compulsion. A flicker in the corner revealed multiple figures emerging from alleys, blurred, faceless, yet strangely familiar. Each seemed to mirror fears Ethan had never voiced, shadows of people he knew, or perhaps had only imagined. Do not step back. Do not speak, the website instructed. Ethan froze, feeling the oppressive weight of inevitability. The figures moved closer, converging in a silent, predatory rhythm. Then the laptop screen flashed violently. Obey. Or lose everything. It wasn't merely a threat, it was prophecy. The line between prediction and command had vanished. The air thickened. Ethan felt his consciousness expanding, straining to comprehend the reality being rewritten around him. Shadows bent unnaturally, walls shifted, and the figures, Lila among them, hovered at the edge of comprehension, part real, part conjured by the website's omnipotence. He realized that any hesitation could trigger a disappearance, not just of others but of himself. The boundaries of the physical world seemed malleable, pliable under the website's will. Every instinct screamed to flee, yet his feet moved forward, in perfect synchrony with the screen's instructions. He followed Lila's unnerving, mechanical movements through the twisted intersection, counting each shadowed step as though it were a heartbeat. The laptop's pulse synchronized with the rhythm of the city, a living, breathing entity that anticipated his every decision. And then, just as the hour approached midnight, a single message dominated the screen: you have a choice. One act of defiance. One chance to reclaim control. But it will cost you dearly. Ethan's breath caught. The shadows paused, tension coiling in the darkness like a spring ready to snap. He felt the immense weight of decision pressing against him, a choice between compliance and resistance, survival and liberation, reality and the website's dominion. Ethan's pulse thundered in his ears, each beat a countdown. The shadows around him were frozen in anticipation, their forms impossibly twisted, faceless, yet intimate. Lila stood ahead, a puppet of the website's will, yet somehow still tethered to the real world. The laptop screen glowed like a sinister beacon. Choose wisely. One act of defiance. One chance to reclaim control. Time seemed to stretch. The city around him warped subtly, lampposts bending toward him, alleyways stretching unnaturally, as if the website's perception had rewritten the very geometry of the streets. Ethan's hands shook, torn between instinctive compliance and the desperate, fleeting desire for autonomy. He realized that any misstep could obliterate not only Lila's essence but potentially his own. A deep, almost imperceptible hum emanated from the laptop, resonating through the soles of his feet. Ethan's gaze flicked between the glowing screen and the unmoving shadows. In that moment, he understood the cruel truth: the website was not merely predicting events, it was orchestrating them, bending reality to its design. Obedience ensured survival. Defiance might cost everything. Ethan made his choice. Slowly, deliberately, he tore his eyes from the screen, breaking the connection the website had established. A hiss of static reverberated through the night. Lila blinked, her unnatural stiffness softening, her eyes returning to their familiar warmth. The shadows convulsed, murmuring in indecipherable voices, and for a brief moment, the oppressive weight lifted. He seized Lila's hand, guiding her through the warped streets back to his apartment. The air throbbed with a residual energy, thick and almost sentient, as if the night itself had been complicit in the website's machinations. The laptop remained open, its glow faint but unyielding. On the screen appeared one final line: you have delayed the inevitable. Tomorrow will be different. We will meet again. Ethan felt a cold dread settle into his bones. The choice had bought them time, not freedom. The website had proven its omnipotence and persistence. It was patient, waiting, calculating. Even as he closed the laptop, the pulsing sensation lingered in his mind, a tether unbroken. Every instinct whispered that the website's gaze had followed him beyond the digital barrier, entwining itself with the very fabric of his reality. Lila squeezed his hand, unaware of the subtle, unseen threads that now connected them to an intelligence beyond comprehension. Ethan forced a smile, but the shadow of inevitability pressed against the corners of his mind. They had survived the night, yet the knowledge remained: the website was eternal, vigilant, and waiting for the next moment of curiosity, the next lapse of attention. As dawn crept over the city, Ethan understood the cruel rhythm of their new existence. Life would continue, but always under observation, always guided by a presence that could predict, manipulate, and demand compliance. Every day, every decision, might already be written on that glowing screen, and he would never again feel the unburdened freedom of choice. The faint hum of his laptop in the background promised only one certainty: the website would return, and the cycle of observation and control would begin anew.